Welcome, people. We end up back at it again with another video. It's been a long time, innit? Been a very long time since I uploaded. But I thought to myself, I'm on holiday from uni, right? I have some time. Why not upload, right? Now, instead of going to the transfer stuff like Havertz to Arsenal, Ziyech to Al Nassr, Koulibaly to Al Hilal, Mendy to Al Ali, right? Before I get into that, right, I just want to go over the season that has passed, right, and do an autopsy of Chelsea's season, right, and identify the cause of death because this was an atrocious season. It was the worst season that Chelsea have ever had in my lifetime. Not only in my lifetime, it is the worst season that we have had in 29 years. And that is mad. You know what I'm saying? So I thought I should just look at the stats, right? Look at how bad our season was, really, and then try to pinpoint a few reasons as to why the season was so bad. Now, I've got a notebook right here, and I'm going to be going through a few of the stats, right, to show you just how bad we did this season, right, and tell you the story of how we got there, right? Cool. So, first things first, we finished 12th, right? Now, we have not finished 12th since the 93-94 season, right? And that was 29 years ago, right? Under Glenn Hoddle. Now, when we were in atrocious form in 15-16, right? At one point, it got to Christmas and we were in 16th place under Jose Mourinho before he got sacked, right? But we ended up turning things around. We got to 10th place, right? That's something, like it's not good, but it's something. But now being in the bottom half, that's bad. But going so far as to have the worst finish in 3 decades, that's even more down atrocious, bro. So that's point number one. Point number two, we had 44 points. We finished with a tally of 44 points this season, right? And that is 40 less than Arsenal, who finished second. And our 44-point tally is the worst tally that we've had in 35 years. So more than 3 decades, 3.5 decades. In 3.5 decades, we have not been that bad. You know what I'm saying? So again, it's just showing we did really, really badly. Like, words cannot describe how bad we were this season, right? Let's look at other stats, right? 16 losses, right? 11 wins, 11 draws. So to have 11 wins in a 38 game season, that gives us a win percentage of 28.9%. On the other hand, Newcastle had a win percentage of 50%, as well as Liverpool. And Newcastle finished 4th, Liverpool finished 5th, right? So if we're going to crack top 4 next season, right, with the competition that there is at the top now, we need at least a win percentage of 50%. And we're not even getting to winning a third of our games, bro. That's down bad. That's down bad for real. Now, continuing on from there, we scored only 38 goals, and that is 30 less than Newcastle United in 4th place. On top of that, to make matters worse, right, we conceded 47 goals. Actually, that's not too bad. That is actually not too bad because that's only 4 less than Arsenal, and they finished in second. So clearly, we don't have a problem with defending so much. We could do better, but it's not such a big deal. Our big problem is that we don't score goals. So now I just want to go through what went wrong in chronological order, right? Step by step, right? How did our season die, right? What were the events in the season which led to this fatality, right? So the first thing is first, right? Our owner, Todd Bowley, right? He thought he knew everything. He came into football, right, as an American, not knowing anything, right? Coming into boardrooms, drawing on this other board a 4-4-3 formation, which doesn't even exist in football, right? Thinking he knows everything, right? Telling Thomas Tuchel that we should get Ronaldo. Ronaldo will be a good fit. Thomas Tuchel telling him no, it actually wouldn't work, and giving his reasons, right? And that wasn't the only reason that their relationship had tension, but it was one of the many reasons, right? They kept disagreeing on the direction they wanted to take the club in, and that is ultimately the reason that he decided to sack Thomas Tuchel. So that was his first mistake, right? A little bit of arrogance, right? Thinking, I'm the boss, I know what I'm doing, right? you're not listening to me, right? And you're my subordinate, even though you know more than me. You know what? Nah. Let's get a yes man in who will listen to me, right? But the funny thing about him sacking Thomas Tuchel is that he did counterintuitive things. What do I mean by this? First of all, he bought Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, right? After buying Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, he sold Billy Gilmore to Brighton, right? Now, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, I think we can all agree, was a Thomas Tuchel signing. They had worked together at Dortmund, right? They had had good chemistry. We were thinking, okay, this could be a way for Chelsea to score goals, right? Because although, what's his name? Aubameyang was exiled from Arsenal, right? He showed at Barcelona that he still got talent, right? He still has potential to do well in the Premier League, right? But clearly that was a Thomas Tuchel signing. We wouldn't otherwise have gone for him, in my opinion, just because of the fact that he's aging and all of that, right? So that's number one. Number two is selling Billy Gilmore. Now, for me personally, I looked at Billy Gilmore as somebody who could be a successor to Kante, right? Who has now left the club. And with Billy Gilmore, what you could see is that Thomas Tuchel, it's not that he didn't like him, but he didn't fit into Thomas Tuchel's plans. At some point, there was news of Billy Gilmore training in isolation and all them thing there, right? Instead of training with the squad, before he was sold. So I'm just thinking, right? If you want to keep this player, which Todd Bowley apparently wants to do, if you want to keep this player and you know for a fact you're going to sack this coach no matter how he performs, right? Why not just tell the player that, look, no, we have a plan for you at the football club. Just wait and see what happens. Instead of selling him to Brighton, right? Instead of handing him to Graham Potter, who was the Brighton manager at the time, and then appointing Potter as your new head coach, like, could have just kept Billy Gilmore at the club, and then him and Potter could have linked up, right? That makes sense to me. But anyways, it is what it is, right? So Bowley's mistakes were thinking that he knows too much, right? And getting rid of Thomas Tuchel. Then also the transfer mistakes in terms of Aubameyang and Billy Gilmore. On top of that, he brought in Graham Potter. Now, when Graham Potter was hired, a lot of people were skeptical. They were thinking, what has he won? What major trophy has he ever won? Is he good enough to be at Chelsea level? And all of this stuff. And there were a lot of questions, right? And personally, the way I saw it is, let's give him a chance. Give him a chance and let's see what he does. You know what I'm saying? I was definitely in full support of him. But looking back at the decision, we hired somebody who hadn't accomplished something at a big club, which was a very, very big risk. On top of that big risk, what we did as well is we gave him a 60 million pound contract, right? Over 5 years. That means 12 million a year, right? Now, if you give a person that type of deal, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Why do you do that? Because first of all, they look at their contract and think, I've got a 5-year contract, right? Worth 60 million pounds. I can relax a little bit. There's not that pressure. Instead, we could have given him an 18-month contract or a 12-month contract, right? With a decent amount of money. Not too much, right? Just a decent amount, right? And then he would be under pressure to prove himself, right? He would be under pressure to show that he belongs at this big club, right? He can't just come into the club, right? Produce mediocre results, and then we're scared to sack him because of having to compensate him and severance pay and everything like that, right? So that's another mistake that he made, right? On top of that, right, when he realized that Potter wasn't a guy, we had fallen into the bottom half of the table, then he thought, you know what's really smart? You know what's going to save our season? What's going to galvanize this team? Let's bring back Frank Lampard, a legend of the club. Now, Frank Lampard is a legend of the club. If I'm not mistaken, he has scored the most goals in Chelsea history, right? But Frank Lampard is a bad manager. He's a terrible manager, respectfully, right? Now, some people may see that as unfair and whatnot, but it's not. Because the first time he was at Chelsea, why did he get sacked, right? He got sacked because of the fact that we were playing with no purpose, no plan, no identity, right? Under his tenure, what we were doing basically is crossing the ball and hoping for the best, right? We had fallen to ninth in the table, which for Chelsea is unacceptable, right? And this was before, many years ago, right? So we knew what kind of manager he is at the top level, but we still hired him. On top of that, to compound matters, to show how silly the decision is, right? He got sacked from Everton, bruv. Everton were like, nah, you ain't good enough, fam. Please leave. So if he can't cut it at Everton, what made Todd Bowley think that he can galvanize our season, he can save our season? It doesn't make sense, bruv. It really doesn't make any sense at all, right? So I think those are the three main things that killed our season, right? Sacking Thomas Tuchel and hiring Graham Potter, who was unproven at the highest level. Then, on top of that, to make matters worse, you're hiring a coach who has shown at the top level that he can't cut it, you know? So I think those are the big three reasons that our season didn't go well. Now, if we look at Graham Potter and Frank Lampard more specifically, right? With them, a big problem that I had when I was watching my team play is I don't see a plan, you know? I do not see a plan. At least with Thomas Tuchel, even when we were struggling a little bit, you could see a plan, right? He wants the wing backs to push up high, right? We want to press the opposition high, and the wing backs need to operate almost as midfielders. You know, they need to be attacking to that extent. You know, I could kind of see a plan. Okay, we're gonna play with a back three rather than just two centre backs. You know, to give us that extra protection. We're gonna have a double pivot. Maybe it's Jorginho and Kante. Maybe it's Kante and Kovacic. You know, a nice dynamic pivot, right? That looks like it can work well. You know what I'm saying? But with Graham Potter and Frank Lampard, there was no plan, guys. They put out a team, right? They gave the formation, and it seems as though they just told them to go out there and have fun and have a good kick about. Like, bro, there was no plan, no identity, no structure. We were just hoping for the best. Those are mistakes that they made. On top of that, someone like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, he's brought into the club, right? And Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is a proven goal scorer. You're leaving him on the bench, bro. For what? Why are you leaving him on the bench? Put him on. We need goals. Clearly, this season, a big thing that we struggled with was goals. So, if we have now a goal machine, someone who's proven to be a goal machine in the past, put him on. Give him a chance. Yes, he's aging, but give him the opportunity at least to show us what he can do. You know, that's one thing. Another thing, not giving a guy like Connie Chukwuemeka an opportunity as well enough times. You know, he did get opportunities here and there, but he would come on late in games as a sub, right, with not much time to go. Maybe we're behind, maybe the score is level. You know, he's not really giving him a chance from the beginning of the game to show us what he can do over 90 minutes. You know, so that's another mistake. Another mistake that the coaches made, both of them in my opinion, is continuously playing Kai Havertz and Mason Mount when they were in bad form. Now, the problem with this mistake is if you're playing them and they're in bad form, and they know it for sure when they're in bad form, footballers, right? Then they think to themselves, okay, I'm safe, right? No matter what happens on a particular afternoon, I know the next game I will definitely be playing, right? The problem with that is that it's not putting them under enough pressure. It's not putting them under a stressful situation in which they know I need to perform or I will be dropped, you know, and that reduces the likelihood of them putting in a good performance. So again, that was a poor choice, right? What else did they do wrong? I think they were just weren't good enough in the end, and they proved that, right? So they made those mistakes and they just weren't good enough in the end as coaches, right? Graham Potter, with what he did with Brighton, you can't say he's a bad coach. That would be unfair. Very, very unfair. But Frank Lampard, we can see this man should not be coaching at all. Like his coaching career now should be done. You know what I'm saying? So what we've learned from this season is Lamps never go back to that man, right? Number one. Number two, Todd Bowley needs to be more. He needs to be more humble, and he needs to say, you know what, the people who I've appointed right now, who know more about football, I'm going to take guidance from them. I'm going to listen to what they have to say and let them take the lead. Yes, I'm the owner, but they are the experts in football. So allow them to do their job well, right? And allow them to do their job properly. Maybe then we won't be paying outlandish amounts of money for players, you know, with big names, and then they come to the club and they don't perform. Instead, maybe what we'll do is we'll get a few players who are unknown. They are nobodies, like literally no one knows them, right? They come into the club, we can see that they've got potential. Boom, they become a superstar at Chelsea, right? So I think that's what he needs to do. He needs to humble himself and say, you know what, the footballing experts lead the way. right? Obviously, he needs to oversee the process, and he needs to, as an owner, he needs to identify that the people who are working for him are kind of doing the right things. They're making logical business decisions, but at the same time, he needs to allow the experts to lead him. And then also, do not hire a coach who is not proven at the top level. Now, obviously, for this coming season, we've hired Mauricio Pochettino, right? And some people would say, "Oh, what has he won at the top level?" Fair point, right? But he took Tottenham Hotspur to the Champions League final. Tottenham Hotspur to the Champions League final. These people have not won a trophy since 2008, right? And obviously, he had the opportunity to do it as well, and he didn't do it. But to take a team like Tottenham, bro, who are not all that, right? They shouldn't even be considered a Big Six club. To take a club like that to a Champions League final, he was doing bits, bro. He was doing bits. So that shows that he's got a certain level of caliber. You know, he understands the English game, right? Let's see what he can do for us. Is he the one who's going to deliver us Premier Leagues once more, right? Because it's been a while since we won the Premier League. Is he the one who's going to deliver us Carabao Cup, FA Cup, Champions League? Maybe that's not him, but at least he can get us back to where we need to be. Because this season we were just in the doldrums. We weren't where we were supposed to be as Chelsea Football Club. So yeah, that's all I got to say. I'll see you probably tomorrow, people, and peace.